And before we begin, I'd like to share with you that Dr. Jamal Badawi's talk as part of this session is dedicated to the memory of Hajja Razia Sharif Sheikh, and her son is with us. We welcome him and thank him for coming. Hajja was a native of Pakistan and was schooled traditionally at home and held a strong belief in the value of formal education, encouraging each of her children to pursue college. She was a very goal-oriented woman. She taught those around her the importance of love, dedication, hard work, and respect of Islam. And through the generosity of her son and her memory, Islamic Society of North America, ISNA, has dedicated this lecture to her memory, and also has a scholarship in her memory which provides an American student with the opportunity to pursue education in Islamic studies and journalism at a US-based institution or abroad. So, mashallah, through the generosity of our brother in the memory of his mother, that scholarship is available. And the talk again of Dr. Jamal Badawi today is in her memory. So I'd like to invite Dr. Jamal Badawi to come forward. He doesn't need an introduction, but he's already had one because he's already spoken here. I think all of us know Dr. Jamal Badawi. He's one of the first names that comes to our mind when we think of our domestic ulama, our domestic scholars, and we wish we had more of him. We wish we could clone him and have more. So mashallah, we welcome him here. We're so honored to have him with us. And we invite him to start off our session, Achieving Balance the Prophetic Way.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. And again, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Given the time limitation, I'll just go straight to the topic. It has just a variant title, but actually deal with the same topic really. I call it Justly Balanced Ummah, following the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Inshallah, we'll cover 4 basic areas. Unless you can change it for me, no problem. Okay. Okay. The most central ayah in the Quran that deal with this notion of just balance, analyzing some of the terms in this ayah, but most importantly, the major part of presentation is about application of that wasatiyya, or just balance, concluding with one slide only about being witnesses for Allah to humankind. The ayah that we're talking about here appears in the 2nd surah in the Quran. It's part of an ayah actually. It's a longer ayah about the qibla or direction. And qibla, by the way, does not mean direction for prayer, but direction of life also. There's evidence for that. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. And thus we, means Allah, have made you a justly balanced ummah, to be witnesses for Allah to people, or mankind, or humankind more accurately, and the messenger, a witness for Allah to you. Now if you look carefully at some of the terms in this ayah, the first thing we notice is that it says, made you, Allah made you, which means to be a justly balanced ummah is something that doesn't come or didn't happen by chance. It wasn't a natural development or evolution. It is not because of your collective wisdom and intelligence, but it is Allah who made it, which means that the whole notion of just balance is embedded really in the wisdom and knowledge and guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the word ummah. Many translations of the Quran use the term nation. But I have some discomfort with that because our understanding of nation usually is connected with people with common history, ethnicity, or groups of ethnicities, geographic boundaries, and so on. Furthermore, it is very interesting when we study the Quran to notice that sometimes the identical term is used in different places, in different meanings, and all that is predicated on what? The context. For example, there is a usage of the Quran of the term ummah to refer to one person on the most micro level. Ibrahim alayhi salam, inna Ibrahima kana ummah. It's referring to his significance of Allah, just like a whole ummah. Sometimes it refers to a small group of people, even small group of people, as an ummah. For example, with the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam, when he went to the wells of Madian, وَجَدَ عَلَيْهِ أُمَّةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ يَسْكُونَ. When he went to the waters of Madian, he found an ummah of people, not a whole lot, the number of shepherds. Of course, in the very beginning, even كَانَ النَّاسُ أُمَّةً وَاحِدًا, the very initial family, it was ummah, all people were one ummah, meaning one group of people. Sometimes, actually frequently in the Quran, it is used to refer to a township or area in the world where a prophet has gone amongst them. However, the way it is used in this particular ayah, in my humble opinion, can best be translated as community of believers. Community of believers. Thus we made you a community of believers. That is much beyond nations and races and colors and wealth and genders. Ummah, extending horizontally to embrace all, vertically to include all people from Adam alayhi salam till the end, who share that faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not only the Quran that gives us this broad notion beyond nations, but we find it also in the actions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the famous Sahifa that late Dr. Hamidullah, alayhi rahmatullah, Muhammad Hamidullah, his excellent work on political history. It's called actually the first constitution in the world, in the modern sense, which embraces everybody, every faith, regardless, based on al-mu'atana, being citizens together, living in a given community. We find that the Prophet ﷺ used the exact identical term, ummah, to refer to two different people. One is to refer to Muslims, when he indicated that in this agreement or constitution, all Muslims, irrespective of tribes, color, Arabs, non-Arab, are ummatun min dunin nas. They are distinct ummah or community of believers from others, not distinct in terms of putting down others, but they have something that they share all together. But lest anyone think that this is exclusivism, the same constitution also, or Sahifa, described the various tribes, Jewish tribes, as ummatun min dunin nas. Exact equal treatment, that right, whether you agree or disagree with their views or religion, doesn't matter. They are also, like Muslims, an ummah by virtue of sharing a particular religious faith. So I hope that dwelling a little bit on that ummah might have been at least in order, because it reflects the universality of the teaching of Islam and its common values. Many common values are shared by all. There are some common values that are unique, but otherwise there are areas also of sharing. Ummatan wasatan. Again, to translate the word wasat is a rather difficult one. Some people say middle of the road, some translators. Okay, I can understand what is the idea behind it, but in reality, middle between what? Middle meaning a point, like point C, that is defined only by A and B. So there's point A, point B, and something in between. But how far in the middle exactly you measure it? How many centimeters or meters or whatever? And again, it might be misleading a little bit unless it is really clearly defined. What is a moderate or middle way between not drinking at all and drinking whiskey? What would be in the middle? Beer? What is the wasat between not praying at all and praying 5 times a day? Something in between. I don't know what they can say, 2.5 praise. So, in other words, things that have been forbidden, they're out. You don't put it in the matter of middle here and middle there. I say that because sometimes it's related to the second usage of the term moderate. Well, I have no problem with moderation in the proper meaning, because somebody can say, I drink in moderation. I smoke marijuana in moderation. You get my point. But then sometimes I have a problem with the word moderate in the dictionary of politicians. You are a moderate if you're not too rigid. When you attend a party, just a little glass of wine. If you don't, if you really got feeling, take beer. You know. Skipping some of the 5 daily prayers, all right? So yes, we respect your faith, you follow your faith, you're a Muslim, but you're not so strict. 5 times a day, be moderate, be moderate. So, another political meaning, you're moderate if you follow our policies. You're with us or against us. So you're moderate if you follow our definition of what true moderation means. Otherwise, I have no problem with the truthful concept of moderation. I liked Yusuf Ali's translation. I think we used something like justly balanced. Justly balanced. But that balance, again, is not my view or somebody else's view. The balance is determined by the thawabit, by the permanent, stable aspects of the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and its guideline. Before leaving the term, it is very useful also to point out that the Quran does not only speak about just balance, but the opposite of just balance. Like the Arabic proverb that says, Al-umuru bi'adadiha tu'araf. Things are known sometimes more clearly when you look at the opposite of it. So what is the opposite of balance? I know there are English terms, but I like always to refer to our turath, to our heritage, and then okay, we can compare with others. But the term that appears in the Quran and Hadith as well is ghulu, which could translate exaggeration, radicalism. These are all related meaning, but it comes from the same kind of term. In fact, as in the Quran, Ya Ahl al-Kitabi la taghlu fi dinikum. So there is mention of that in the Quran. There is mention in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ by way of warning about not being just balanced. And this is the crux of the matter of the violence and things that we keep hearing about, people having amazing and strange ideas that has nothing to do with Islam, but presented in the garb of Islam. إياكم والغلو فإنما أهلك من كان قبلكم أو كما قال. Beware of exaggeration in your deen, because it destroyed people before you, which implies it could destroy you also, no matter how you keep claiming that you are a Muslim. All right. Let's come to applications. And now we understand the notion of just balance. I mean, some other roots statement, everybody will agree with that. But how is that manifest, not as a dry concept, but as a practical concept in the various aspects of human life? Let me take first the issue of belief, the matter of belief. Is there wasatiyya also, or just balance in belief? Yes, not in the belief itself, the subject of belief, but the attitudes of people to the matter of belief, or that some people would reject anything that is not tangible, physical, touchable. And as such, of course, believe in God and prophets and all that stuff. I cannot touch it, I cannot put it in the laboratory or prove it, therefore it doesn't exist. You know, it reminds me sometimes with a joke that it might have been real, a philosopher, and there's nothing wrong with the philosopher, but that was an atheist philosopher who goes to his class and says, did you guys see God, this thing they talk about? No. They said, no. Teacher. He said, did you hear God? They said, no. Did you touch God? They said, no. He said, therefore, he does not exist. And a student, smart one, stood up and he says, did any of you guys see the brains of our teacher? He said, no. Hear it? No. Touch it? No. Therefore, ... Okay. Anyway, so that's one extreme, of course, that has an epistemological problem, really, that the source of knowledge is nothing but the tangible word, which, yeah, anyway. But of course, there is the other extreme of people who would accept anything, even man-made philosophies and dogmas, as untouchable. No debate, no question asked, take it. How is the wasatiyya of Islam manifest itself in the matter of belief? It doesn't go to either extreme. The Quran teaches us to use reason to the fullest extent in the scope or arena where reason is designed for it. Nobody can make a hand on that. Nobody can make an argument that the Quran is the most amazing revealed book that speaks about using of reason. And I'll give you an example in a second. So that's one. The number of ayat in the Quran says, don't they think, see in some semi-intelligible way. But in the meantime, there are areas definitely that are not irrational, but supra-rational, which is a big difference. Supra-rational means something that is beyond the collective wisdom and ability to perceive, perceptual ability even of all humans. We cannot even fully perceive the physical world. Do you know how many species of certain flies even are there? Species of tomato. There are things that are just beyond us, even in the physical world, let alone the world that is beyond. That is ghaib, the concept in the Quran. Now, the example I'm giving here is something that attracted my attention sometimes, like many, many years back. That, you know, the Quran is not organized or ordered in the same way historical revelation. There is wisdom behind that. There are books written on it. Okay? In other words, the first revelation in the Quran was in Surah Al-Alaq, the 96th surah in the Quran, especially the first 5 ayahs. Okay? But that doesn't appear as number 1, that's number 96. So, let's say there are very, very good reasons behind that. But in any case, the point here is that the very first revelation, the 5 ayahs, I don't think there's much dispute about that. 96, Surah 96, ayah 1 to 5. What does it say? First word, Iqra. It could also be recite. Both are correct rendering. And then if you look at the 5 ayahs, it speaks about learning, allam, teaching, twice at least. It speaks about 2 tools of learning بالقلم. علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم, again repeating the knowledge. That's amazing. One would say, right, believe in Allah, or something like that. No. Even when the Quran speaks about believing in Allah, it requires to have knowledge also. Yes, there are supra levels, but use your mind also. Have you ever thought about this ayah? فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. There are many ayat in the Quran that say believe in Allah, but this one says no, أعلم, from ilm, knowledge, that there is no God but Allah, which means even one of the means of learning about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His grace and powers is through ilm. It's not, a contradictory things, either knowledge or faith. No, they're really interrelated and they serve one another. Okay? Sorry, just trying to catch up with you. Sometimes I get involved in this. Okay, let's go back one. Okay, so that was the first ayah in the Quran. And in between the first 5 ayat in the Quran and the last revelation, okay, now beyond, because this one doesn't, okay. Yeah, no. And the matter of belief, just belief, thank you. Just, okay. No, before that also. So here we have a whole spectrum of ayat in the Quran, beginning with knowledge and thinking. Yet, if you look at the very first ayat in the Quran up beyond the Fatiha, because the Fatiha, many scholars say, Mufassirin, it is basically like introduction to the Quran or dua that Allah guide you, and that dua, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, to guide us onto the straight path, is answered in Surah Al-Baqarah. After the introduction of the surah, ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه. So if he's seeking guidance in Al-Fatiha, here is the guidance, ذلك الكتاب. And then it begins by giving the profile of true believers. What is number 1? Those who have knowledge, well, that is covered elsewhere a lot. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Those who believe in the unseen, the supra-rational. That's not self-contradictory, but beyond our full comprehension as human beings. I believe that is not by chance. Because in the beginning you have to start from the base of knowledge and use your heart, yes, but you have to use the knowledge and reason. But as the Quran is completed now and put in its final order according, that's tawqifiyah, with the instruction of Jibreel alayhi salam. And now when you start reading that Quran, beware, as if it says, beware that there are things that will be striking scientifically. Yes, no question. There are lots of things written about the ijaz of the Quran from the standpoint of modern proven science, not theoretical science, proven science. Okay? But humble yourself when you open that book, because there will be issues that you will encounter that you cannot fully comprehend, not because you're not intelligent or smart, but it is beyond the grasp of the humans. Like Qadr. Allah created me, He knows what I'm going to do, everything in His will. Why does He punish me? If you keep dwelling on that, you're like a kitten playing with the yarn, and the more it dwells, the more it gets entangled. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا ذُكِرَ الْقَدَرُ فَأَمْسِكُ. When people start dwelling about, I don't like the word predestination. Qadar actually means measures or law of Allah. أَمْسِكُ. Don't dwell too much on it. So be sure that you'll face something like that. So yes, use your mind, use your reason, but humble yourself in these supra-rational areas. We go next to in the issues or matters of worship. One extreme, forgetting about Allah, it doesn't have anything to do with my life. Like one psychiatrist in our city was telling me one time, he was talking to his secretary just at the weekend, Friday, what are you planning to do in the weekend? And she said, oh yeah, I'll go with my boyfriend and drink to death and this and that, and on Sunday I go to sing in the choir in my church. I'm not generalizing, by the way, but that's their own perception. He said, how do you reconcile all of these? She said, well, simple. I don't want God to interfere in my personal life. Okay? The other one, of course, is the monasticism as an example. Believing that you can only get close to God with purification by torturing your body, worshipping day and night, and so on. Again, that is not the approach. What is the evidence for that? You know that little story of 3 people who went to visit the Prophet ﷺ, and they said, Allah has forgiven him everything. Forgiveness here is something trivial, it's not. Anyway, so he made it already, but we really need to do something. Let's watch what he's doing at home. So they go and visit him, and he noticed that, and it's not unusual, just he sleeps part of the night, pray part of the night, just. So somehow they said to themselves, maybe because he's a special person. So one of them said, okay, in order to catch up with him, I'll pray every night, and no sleep. One of them said, I fast each and every day, not just Ramadan. Every day, I'm fasting. The other one said, I'm not going to get married, so don't get distracted with those girls, so that I can worship Allah. He overheard them, and he said to them, let's use the modern language, are you guys the ones who said this, and that? They said, oh, Messenger of Allah, yes. He said, you know that I'm the closest to you of Allah and the most mindful of Allah of all of you. However, I pray sometimes, voluntary pray, nafil, and I sleep. I fast some days, and I break the fast other days. And I marry women. This is my sunnah, my way, and anyone who does not follow my way, he is not of me. I don't think you need any more evidence about even the matter of worship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows our weakness, knows our needs. And actually, inshallah, something coming in recreation also might be pertinent to that. In the matter of enjoying life in general, one extreme, of course, is hedonism. Pleasures, pleasure, and more pleasure, dying of the tuhmat al-pleasure, of the excesses of pleasure. We all know that. And the other, of course, is word renunciation, like monasticism that we mentioned. Yet, one of the most beautiful ayahs in the Quran that reflect that just balance, at least in my humble understanding, in Surah Al-Qasas, in the advice of Luqman to his son. وَابْتَغِ فِي مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ. Seek in what Allah has bestowed upon you the hereafter. Because this is here al-hayawan, this is the really more extended life. And sometimes you can have a mathematical formula for that. Suppose you live 200 years on earth, divided by eternity, which is after, what is the product, mathematicians? Divide 200 years, 300 years, 1,000 years by infinity. What's the product? Zero. Exactly. So, okay, that's why it began with an emphasis on the real life with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then it says, وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Don't forget your share in this life. وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ. Be good as Allah has been good to you. وَلَا تَبْقِ الْفَسَادَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Don't seek mischief on earth. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. Allah doesn't love mischief makers. So again, it's so clear here that enjoying, legitimate enjoyment of life is not bad or dirty in itself, whether it's food or getting married and companionship and all of these. It is not bad. This is what this probably might have been the Freudian thinking, but I'm not a psychologist. But it is good in itself, and Allah had these human desires for a purpose to keep the procreation of humans. If you don't eat, again, you will die. So it's not bad in itself. It is the way you satisfy those that could be good or bad. There's no condemnation. Then when the Quran says, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا, no excesses. Eat and drink, but do not waste. Allah doesn't like people who are wasteful. They didn't say don't eat, or just take something that keeps you alive. I read some stories that are very strange. I don't know whether this is held anymore. It might be wrong. That they say at one time Buddha used to survive on one rice per day. I think it could probably, maybe it's not authentic, really, let alone people who take that pile in one meal. Anyway, so the no excesses, but it's okay. Not only this, but Islam considered the prohibition of things that Allah permitted as bad as making the prohibited lawful. قُلْ مَنْ حَرَّمَ زِينَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي أَخْرَجَ. Say who had the power or authority to forbid people from Allah what Allah has allowed them. In matters of social life, and as the end of time is coming, I'm not talking about the ultimate end of time, of course. It's coming, but not in this session. Allah A'lam. We know. Okay, social life. Just the balance between individual needs and the collective needs of society. You don't crush individuality in the name of social needs, and the reverse. Balancing individual freedom with the divinely rooted social ethics. Balancing the need of the rule of law with the compassionate implementation of the law, prevention and rehabilitation. Continuing, balancing, encouraging people to work hard, entrepreneurship, because that's how people can exert effort, creativity, with the social requirement and ethics also. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said that you just earn as much as you want from halal way, provided you have the zakah also. You pay on it and spend it in the right way. Preserving one's identity of beliefs and accepting other people. It's not either we the believer versus the kuffar. And many people don't understand even what the word kufr means and its uses in the Quran, but that's another topic. Okay, acceptance of others. The Prophet ﷺ did it at the same time, and who can be a better example? The notion of coexistence, peaceful, just coexistence, that again was in the recitation of my son or my little brother Taha this morning. There is also a just balance in the matter of ijtihad between the stability of the basics of our deen and the dynamism of fatwa that the scholar used to say. Fatwa, to give interpretation within the permanent aspects of Sharia, it may change with the change of time, place, custom, and circumstances. It's neither freezing things in history versus, everybody becomes a mufti, like McDonald's just flipping hamburgers. You find not only one sheikh, Google, shuyukh Google, to give you all kind of fatwas. Some are qualified, of course, some. The firmness of the supreme objectives of Sharia that many scholars forget. Safeguarding faith, life, family, honor, property, and all of these. These are guiding principles even in understanding Sharia. Sharia is not only about laws. There are very few laws, really, but the maqasid should be there. There's distinction also between a particular objective of Sharia and the means or mechanics of doing that. To come, for example, today and you say Sadaqat al-Fitr, Zakat al-Fitr must be paid in kind in a city with 7 million people, it might have suited given societies, and maybe some today, but to say that this is, so it's not put in frozen. Balancing the Iman with knowledge, practice, benefiting from our heritage, understanding our presence, and planning for our future, they are all related to one another. And one final word on that. Why did Allah consider this gift of giving us the foundation to be justly balanced? Because we don't behave as justly balanced individuals or ummah, but that's our problem. Allah gave us, ja'alnakum, provided you with the way of life that make it just balanced. لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ, so that you can be witnesses for Allah to people, as the Prophet is a witness for Allah to you. How can we be witnesses? By word, spoken, recorded, taped, I word, whatever, fine. But remember, by service to humanity, this Sister Zahra also alluded to that, about relating to people and so on. Service to humanity, there's nothing wrong with that. Humanity at large, there is evidence in the Quran and Sunnah that it's not haram to be charitable to those who are in need or those who are suffering, whether regardless of their belief or non-belief even, for that matter. But the most important is by good example. This is what we are sorely lacking. This is where we can work to restore again those values that brought millions of people to Islam. It wasn't the lectures or the tapes or whatever. It was the good example. May Allah help us all to be shuhada on mankind. Assalamu alaikum.
We'll have question and answer for both together. So if I can have Mufti Kamani please come forward. We're short on time because we have to make Salat al-Dhuhr at 1:15. But I think what we'll do is, can we do Mufti Kamani and then have the brother talk? Or do you want to speak now? Okay, so just a couple of minutes before Mufti Kamani speaks, our brother, son of Hajj Razia, just wanted to address the group.
Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam. On behalf of Hajj Razia Sheikh Trust, I thank ISNA, the board of ISNA, Brother Al-Hatab, Brother Bata, for organizing this lecture. And I thank Dr. Jamal Badawi for esteemed scholarly, informative, educational lecture. We are blessed that he could deliver this lecture to honor Marhuma Haja Razia Sharif Sheikh. I had the privilege and God's blessing to visit this house of Allah when it was just concrete, being just started with my daughter Samina Fazia Sheikh. We were in this town for 2 days, that now several years ago, but that dedication for Haja Razia Sharif Sheikh did not materialize, but with God's blessing, it's fate that she is honored today in the same house of Allah, which was to be constructed and starting at that time. And for information, there is no representation of Muslims in media. So there is journalism scholarship, Haja Razia Sharif Sheikh journalism scholarship available at ISNA, and that is strictly for ISNA members. But there is equal opportunity Islamic Studies scholarship at ISNA, at University of Columbia, New York, after Haja Razia Sharif Sheikh name, University of Michigan, same, Oakland University, University of Kentucky. The same scholarships are available, Haja Razia Sharif Sheikhs in those universities. Inshallah, there will be 2 more universities added. And those are equal opportunity, and we wish non-Muslim take the opportunity to get those scholarships, because these scholarships mean countering universal anti-Islam phobia. And there's a professorship also at University of Kentucky after Marhuma's name, Azhar Sheikh, Professor Islamic Studies. Now, please do put special effort for these scholarships. They are waiting for you, especially journalism for Muslims, especially members of ISNA. So we have some representation in media. Shukran, jazakallah.
To follow on this request, please visit ISNA website. There is a scholarship, a special application, and all information about all the scholarships that ISNA provide. Jazakumullah khairan.
So we have limited time because Salat al is supposed to be at 1:15. So we want to give a chance for Mufti Kamani to address us, and then we'll leave a little bit of time for question and answer for both, inshallah.
And the Salat's at 1:15?
1:15.
Like,
not much time.
Okay, let's make this quick then. Oh, well, I'm lucky. Actually, let me just start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa, khususan ala sayyidi rusuli wa khatami al-anbiya wa ala alihi al-asqiya wa ashabihi al-atqiya, amma ba'd. Well, I'm lucky that I'm speaking after Dr. Jamal Badawi. I missed most of his lecture because I was in the Mina session, but when I came down, he was going on he was really technically going at it. I saw, like, some terminology being used in there, and I was like, you know what? I think these guys have enough content for the day. I just wanted to share some thoughts in relation to balance in life. There was an anecdote that came to my mind as I was walking down, and I thought I would share it. There was a famous scholar in Islamic history by the name of Fudail bin Iyad. He wasn't really that much of an academic scholar, spent more of his time in worship. He was also known as Abid al-Haramain. And why he was given that title, there are many reasons given by the scholars. One group of scholars, they say the reason why he was given the title Abid al-Haramain, which means the worshipper of the two sanctuaries, is because there wasn't a place in the two holy mosques in Mecca and Medina where he hadn't been in sajda crying there. So he wrote a letter to another great scholar who was a jurist, and he was also a prolific collector of hadith and many sciences. He's one of the most well-rounded scholars you'll find in Islamic history. His name was Abdullah bin Mubarak. So Fudail bin Iyad writes a letter to Abdullah bin Mubarak saying to him, Abdullah, you're all over the place. Settle down. Because Abdullah bin Mubarak, what he used to do was he would divide his year. He would divide 1/3 of his year for knowledge, another 1/3 of his year for ibadah, and the last 1/3 of his year for activism. And activism sometimes would mean that he would have to go to the battlefield on the command of the Muslim Amir, or the Khalifa. So he writes this letter to him saying, stop being all over the place and just settle down and do one thing. And Abdullah bin Mubarak responds to him in a very beautiful letter. He says to him, and he writes a few lines of poem. It's a very long poem. I'll just share a few lines with you. He says to him, Ya abid al-haramayn law absartana, la'alimta annaka fil ibadati tal'abu. Man kana yukhdilu khaddahu bidumu'ihi, fakhuyuluna bidima'ina tatakhadda. He said that, O worshipper of the two sanctuaries, if you were just to see what we're actually doing on the frontier, you would learn that you and all of your worship is all a big joke. It's a big play. Because where you might be sitting in the mosque and your cheeks are being, are wet due to your tears, we are covered in blood due to where we are right now. And this lesson of Abdullah bin Mubarak is a very beautiful one. What is that? It's that diversify yourself. The ummah needs you not in one place, it needs you in so many places. Each and every one of us have a goal and passion you want to fulfill in your life, and that's great. Focus on your goal, focus on your passion, but learn to diversify yourself. We find that in the example of the Prophet ﷺ, and I'm sure Dr. Jamal very eloquently must have given you so many examples. And I came from the Mina session right now. And when I was there, and I want to address what I just addressed up there from another angle, from a quick spin, in the next few minutes that I have. Everything requires a time and place. Okay. In the last week, our lives changed. Many of us, we experienced something that was unexpected. And like I said up there, it wasn't impossible, neither was it improbable. It was just unexpected. People weren't expecting the Republican nominee to be appointed as the President of the United States of America. And I don't think it was just an appointing that caught us off guard. It was how many people that were actually willing to go out there and vote on his behalf. Hillary won the majority vote, by the way, and that's a very important lesson. We need to say this to ourselves. The majority of the people in this country who voted are not bigots. And not everyone who voted for Donald Trump is a bigot. People went there for their own reason. He was campaigning in Pennsylvania, in small town Pennsylvania, where people are sitting because their cities were ripped of their industries. You know, I've been to Pennsylvania, I've been to small town Pennsylvania, speaking at different mosques. And I'm telling you, when you walk into those cities, like there was Allentown. I went there. Anyone been to Allentown? Yeah? I hope you don't get offended by what I'm about to say next. It was depressing. The cities, the walls looked depressed. The subway looked depressed. The McDonald's, they all looked depressed too. Like, you know, Ronald McDonald didn't look happy there. Like everyone there was just really depressed. The city, and you feel like the huzn and gham that people are carrying in their heart. And people want change. And they look for, when people don't want change, they'll do anything for change. And we have a history full of that in our humanity. So when this sort of thing happens, this is where our attention is required right now. Every one of us sitting here needs to become a political ambassador to our people. Go back and share, talk about what Islam says. I was talking about this earlier on. Many of us with the youth, there's a different lecture for them, but I was mentioning to them that when it comes to this issue at hand, this becomes the most important issue for us to address. When you stand on your minbar, this is what needs to be addressed. The political crisis people are facing. People I know in our communities are struggling with an iman crisis because they feel Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let them down. They made dua to Allah and that's not what happened. But you have to remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't do what you ask. If you were sincere, He'll give you better than what you asked. And that's a belief system that we have. And I gave an example earlier, and I'll share that example again very briefly. When the Muslims, they went to Makkah Mukarramah, 1,400 strong, with the intention of performing Umrah. They arrived there, they're stopped by the Meccans won't let them in. The Prophet ﷺ signs a treaty which states the Muslims cannot do Umrah this year, they can come next year, the 7th year, which is known as Umratul Qada, for 3 days only. The Muslims are torn up inside because what they wanted politically, they weren't able to achieve. Going for Umrah was more than just a ritual. It also had a political aspect to it too. That's why the Quraysh stopped them, because they felt like that was a rub in their face on a political issue. When they're leaving there, now this is the important part here. When they're leaving, when they're told that you can't do Umrah this year, the Prophet ﷺ came to the companions and said, everyone take your ihram off for going home. And this is the only time, and I just said this to the youth right now, this was the only time in 63 years where something unique happened. When the Prophet told them, get up and take your ihram off for going home, you know what the Sahaba did? They did nothing. They just sat there. And the Prophet said, come on, let's go. And everyone sat there. And the Prophet went to his wife Salama and said, they're not listening. And she said, O Messenger of Allah, it's not that they're not listening to you. They're just in denial. They're hoping that they can riot the streets and somehow get the Electoral College to turn the vote around and get a bunch of signatures. Like that ever worked, right? Petition.com is a waste, by the way. Right? Anytime someone told me to petition for something, I'm like, okay, delete. Change that. You're the one who sends me those emails. Imam's an awesome guy, good buddies. That's why he's trolling me in the middle of a lecture. So, and we're just in denial of it. And then she says to Salama says to the Prophet, why don't you go out there and exit ihram? When they see you do it, they'll follow you. And that's exactly what happened. And when they were walking home from Makkah to Medina, you have to really put yourself in that caravan. It must have been a very depressing walk home. The walk of shame. Your heart's broken. Nobody's talking. Everyone's really frustrated. They're probably crying in their heart. You know. And while they're walking home, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals the ayah, Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. The Prophet turns around and says, hey guys, Allah just gave us victory. And they're probably thinking, what victory? How could Donald Trump be a victory? Like, that's like an oxymoron, you know? How did that happen? But you know, this is a lesson of taqdeer, it's a lesson of trusting Allah. This is where we need to go out to other Muslims and talk to them. Stop talking about how horrible Donald Trump is of a president, because everybody knows that, that's ma'loom. Saying what's obvious doesn't add any value to any human being. You talk about what's not obvious. Go and reflect over some of the benefits this may bring. Even though there might be slight benefits, maybe they're potential, maybe they may not ever manifest. But people need positivity. وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. Be positive in your conversation. Because that's where you'll give birth to activists. أَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ will give birth to what? فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. It'll give birth to activists. People need to be positive right now. Go back home and talk to your kids and say, Allah will bring something good out of this. And I shared this up there. I'm repeating a lot of the things that I said, but again, these thoughts are just in my mind, so I have to spill them out. yes, it is true that we're experiencing a lot of hate crime east to west of this country, which is more almost like a continent, but this huge country of ours, east to west, we're experiencing hate crime since Tuesday. It's true. But at the same time, please tell me that the Muslims haven't experienced this much love before. How many masajid are there that are sharing, that are saying that our neighbors came and they gave us bouquets, and the next door church came and gave us? And they didn't just come because they felt like it. I mean, many of them came because we were there for them and we've been working together for years. This is why interfaith is so important. People who mock it, I know a lot of people in our community, they say people who engage in interfaith are wasting their time. It's not a waste. It's times like this that you see it paying off. And where neighbors were coming to their Muslim neighbors and saying, people may say they don't like you, but we want you to know we love you. You know, that sort of love, this openly, wasn't expressed before. And it's not love for you. No one cares about Salma or Aisha. Sorry, no offense. Right? They care about you being a Muslim. Because we're a minority. And let me come back to that activism point, and let me close. I know it's almost a lot of time shift. It's one more point. Yes, every minority in this country was given an opportunity. When the opportunity comes to you, you have to maximize and make legislation out of it. If you don't do so, that moment will pass by and you can't do anything anymore. Then you can sit there and talk, but you're speaking to a wall. You know, there were people who were searching for their rights, their sexual rights, earlier on. Was it last year or this year? This year, right? And the Supreme Court passed law in their favor. So if Muslims, if we feel that we're being discriminated against, this is an opportunity for us to raise our voice. And not only when it comes to let's not just play defense and say we're being discriminated here, let's play the offense as well. It was so beautiful to see one of my good friends, Ahmed Rihab, who's also with CARE. He posted today on his Facebook. What he posted today made me smile, honestly. I read it in the plane on the way here. You know what he posted? He said, Donald Trump wants us to move to Mexico and wants us to move to Canada and move out of this country. I decided I'm not moving anywhere, rather I'm running for office. And I immediately laughed. I was like, ha ha ha. And everyone on the plane was like, what's this guy doing? He looks like a ghost and he's laughing like one too. And I scroll down and as I continued reading, he's saying that I want to start running for office locally. And that's what I think Muslims need to do. You know, we're talking about balance here. Everything has a time. Everything has a place. Everything has an approach. I'm not asking for people to go solo here and start running your political campaigns because that's going to cause more harm than anything. Okay? What we need to do is regroup. Get together. Plan. Execute. We have organizations like ISNA amongst us who can help us, who can be a platform for us. ISNA has been at the forefront of activism from day one, and everybody knows that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them for their efforts. So I call you to once again, I reiterate everything Dr. Jamal Badawi must have said, and I know that what he said is much more important than what I've said. But what I will say to you as I close is that this is a time for us to turn our attention away from our suburban home, right? Away from our Mercedes and BMW, away from paying off the next loan and paying off the next credit debt. Turn your mind away from that for a second. And understand the world is bigger than your debts. There are people waiting for us. There's an ummah outside waiting for us to do something. You know? And we got to get up and do something now. This is where you'll create balance in your life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us and give us all tawfiq. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
So we only have a couple of minutes for questions and answers, so please keep it very short. Does anybody have any burning questions that they want to make? I know we have one comment.
Assalamu alaikum. Well, Dr. Jamal gave an excellent, eloquent presentation. What I'd like to comment, and also our brother who also touched on an important topic. What I want to focus on is that moderation is behavior and attitude. The psychological aspect of moderation should be addressed and in deep analysis. سبحانه وتعالى قال ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها. The rest of the ayah. So what happened is that we have to think moderation in the sense of present day civilization, present day technology, and present day whatever improvement and enhancement in our knowledge, in our way of life, in our economics, in our politics, in our social behavior. So, because in the family, for example, when you talk about your children, everyone, that's in the case of my grandchildren as well, I have 8 of them. When we get together, everyone has a small computer in his hand, and once we talk, we start looking at and punching in the computer and not listening to us. So this is the case of our generation. So what we need is moderation in the sense of the psychological aspects that penetrates in our heart, in our knowledge, in our spiritual, spiritual upbringing. Well, at the end, I want to say that we have really to work hard and learn more and really act together and be proactive instead of reactive. And there's a difference between the two. Assalamu alaikum.